Welcome to Two Gay Tuesdays on QueerPublicRadio.com. On Two Gay Tuesdays, we will discuss news and events happening in our world. Much of it will be related to our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersex, and allied communities. Our goal is to inform, enlighten, and have some fun along the way. Join Kali and Tom and occasional guests as we explore our world in hopes of making it a better place. Most of our content will show a great need for more understanding and love involving the treatment of our fellow human family members. All human family members. On with the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Two Gay Tuesdays. Today is November 27th. It is currently 8:02 p.m. on the East Coast, and that makes it about 5:02 p.m. on the West Coast. And hello, Kali, what time is it in Hawaii?
Aloha! It is 3:02 p.m. in the Hawaiian Islands.
And beautiful, too, I bet.
Indeed. Nice and sunny, and the winds are blowing. And the temperature is about 78, 80 degrees.
Perfect. Wow. I'm jealous. Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, just get in their canoe there and start paddling.
All right, see you next Christmas. That's a lot of paddling. I don't think I'd make it. That ain't happening. Let's see. Just looking over the chat room real quick. Don't see nobody in there, but I see our tweeter. Twit went out. Tweeter, tweet. There we go, tweet. The tweet went out. Anyway, on with the show here. Let's get down to the quote for today, because today is a very special day. So today's quote of the day comes from Harvey Milk, due to the fact that today is Harvey Milk and George Moscone Remembrance Day. It was 34 years ago today that they were both murdered. Supervisor Harvey Milk felt he might be assassinated, and he made a special audio recording that was only to be played if and or when that he was assassinated. And I know a lot of people hadn't heard that clip, so I thought it would be appropriate to put that clip out for our comment of, the quote of the day. The quote of today from Harvey Milk, in what I'm calling it, in the event of my death. Here he is.
This is to be played only in the event of my death by assassination. I fully realize that a person who stands for what I stand for, an activist, gay activist, becomes the target or the potential target for somebody who is insecure, terrified, afraid, or very disturbed themselves. Knowing that I could be assassinated at any moment or any time, I feel it's important that some people know my thoughts. I stood for more than just a candidate. I have never considered myself a candidate. I have always considered myself part of a movement, part of a candidacy. I wish I had time to explain everything I did. Almost everything was done in the eyes of the gay movement.
In the eyes of the gay movement. Yep, and no truer words were ever spoken. That's, we have heard over and over and over and over again, that Harvey Milk it never was about him. It was about the community. It was about us, our LGBT community, of which he was a member of. So I think that's an important statement, because there's so much, the world just seems rampant with selfishness these days, and It's kind of a refreshing to have a little bit of unselfishness. Yep. And now Kali's going to share with us some wonderful, wonderful gay history.
Indeed. On November the 27th of 1700, a new law concerning sodomy was passed by the Pennsylvania Assembly. If committed by a white man, sodomy was punishable by life in prison and, at the discretion of the judge, a whipping every 3 months for the first year. If married, the man was castrated and his wife was granted a divorce. If committed by a black man, the punishment for sodomy was death.
Wow.
Talk about being torturous there. On November the 27th of 1978, the formation of the first Parents of Gays group in Canada was established. Also on November the 27th of 1978, conservative Dan White, after discovering that he would not be reappointed to his seat on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, took a gun and extra ammunition and goes to City Hall. He entered through the lower level window to avoid the metal detectors and went to the office of Mayor George Moscone, who was supportive of the gay community, and fired 4 shots, 2 to the head. Those who heard the gunshots did not realize what they were hearing, giving him time to reload his gun and go to the office of Supervisor Harvey Milk, the first openly gay man to be elected in a major American city. There, he fired 5 shots. Both men were pronounced dead. Dan White would later be convicted of manslaughter and serve only about 5 years.
Oh, one point before you go further here. Do you know what the slang name was that they gave his defense? Do you happen to remember that?
No, I don't. Do you?
Yes. And that's why I mentioned it, because of what we talked about on last week's shows with Hostess going out of business. Dan White.
Was this the Twinkies?
Yes, it was the Twinkie defense, yes. Because he ate so many Twinkies, he was on a sugar rush, and yeah, it made him temporarily insane, I guess. The Twinkie defense. Anyway, I had to mention the Twinkie defense with Hostess being on my mind from last week and all that kind of stuff, and now we have a whole nother way of looking at Hostess Twinkies when we think about Dan White. I know I have for quite some time. I just wanted everyone else to share that with me.
Alrighty, onward. With November the 28th of 1977, Aspen became the first city in the state of Colorado to pass a gay rights ordinance.
Yay, Aspen!
On November the 29th of 1979, a Quebec Superior Court judge ruled that the Montreal Catholic School Commission did not have justifiable grounds to refuse to rent space to gay rights group ADGQ, and therefore was not exempt from the Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. The ruling overturns the Province Human Rights Commission's second opinion in 1978 and becomes the first legal victory against discrimination since the adoption of the Gay Rights Clause in Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms of the Constitution in December of 1977. And finally, on November the 30th of 1989, Columbus, Ohio Mayor Dana Reinhardt signed a hate crimes bill which included the term sexual orientation, but asked the city council to remove the term sexual orientation from it, saying the term was vague and did not belong in the ordinance. The council refused. If you know of it to include, please use the contact page on queerpublicradio.com and tell us about it. Tom?
Oh, boy, you got me wondering why that lady recanted her, why she wanted to change it. I'm like, somebody got to her, but, between the time she submitted that and wrote it and it got approved, and then someone went to her and, how dare you, blah, 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 and then she, well, we need to take that out. Too late now. Interesting.
You're very interesting, as the saying goes.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some more research on that. If I find out anything, I'll be sure to let everybody know. I think there's a story behind that. We want to know the rest of the story. Yeah, yeah. Oh, Colleen's got a comment for today. He wants to share with us.
Yes, and my comment of the day goes like this. Yes, over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, we all had our turkeys and stuffing and yams and all that good stuff. But there was another holiday that was celebrated that weekend, and I can just see y'all now. What the heck is Kelly talking about? There are no other holidays on Thanksgiving week, but alas, it wasn't your traditional holiday. This was Black Friday. Yes, Black Friday, where we all go and purchase cheaply made products and give them to other people who really don't want them. Why is this? Why do we feel the need to spend 2 or more hours waiting in queue at your local Walmart only to find out the product you want is sold out? Don't all these same stores make money the rest of the years? All this crazy, insane activities is about celebrating that other holiday we all love. Yes, I am talking about that Give People Gifts, Go Into Debt Day, celebrated on the 25th of December, a.k.a. Christmas. I like gift giving and gift receiving as much as the next guy, but I don't see a need to go into debt and having debt collectors calling me for 6 months into the next year just to shop on Black Friday, only to have to start shopping for Christmas 2013 in June. Gee, I wonder if the trees will be decked out in green and red then, too. So buy your gifts, deck your halls, sing your carols, and be merry. But remember, there is far more to the 25th day of December than just awesome gifts.
Oh, yeah, boy, that opens the door for conversation, or at least thought-provoking. Definitely.
Well, I try my best.
Well, yeah, deck the halls and sing your carols and be merry. That's that. I like the be merry part.
Well, after a couple glasses of eggnog, I guess I can't be merry.
that Mary is spelled with an E and 2 R's, not an A and 1 R.
Oh, darn. I thought you meant the M-A-R-Y way.
Yeah. No, you always wanted to have a virgin birth, didn't you?
Yes, sure did.
Well, on we go. It's time for the non-gay news.
I thought that was what I was supposed to say.
I don't know. It sounds better on my high-dollar microphone than it does on your telephone. You're getting really good at it, but it just sounds better on a studio mic.
Yes, it does. I'm just teasing. Well, on with the news, as they say.
All right.
Now, time for some more news from the separation of church and state file. Initially, there was a little outcry in Moscone, Oklahoma last week when a judge, as a condition of a youth's probation for a driving-related manslaughter conviction, sentenced him to attend church regularly for 10 years. The judge, Mike Norman, who is 67, had sentenced people to church before it, though never for such a serious crime. But as the word of the ruling spread in the state and national legal circles, constitutional experts condemned it as a flagrant violation of separation of church and state. This week, the American Civil Liberties Union said it would file a complaint against Judge Norman with the Oklahoma Council on Judicial Complaints. And that's an agency that investigates judicial misconduct, seeking an official reprimand or other sanctions. They go on to say, we see a judge who has shown disregard for the First Amendment of the Constitution in his rulings, said Ryan Kiesel, executive director of the Civil Liberties Union branch in Oklahoma. I would also tend to think that this is a bad thing, no matter what side you fall on, because whose church should the kid attend? And furthermore, what sort of religion fits the crime? Are we going to start saying that certain crimes can be healed by certain religious traditions? The lunacy of this whole story is mind-boggling.
Yeah, I read a little more on this article. At one point, sometime, I don't know if he was being interviewed or if he mentioned it in passing or what, but somewhere after this, he mentioned that, Jesus has made a difference in my life. And of course, that of course immediately brings to me, well, what if the kid's Muslim? Or what if the kid is Hindu? If he's some other non-Christian religion, it just opens the door for a lot of questions there. Like you say, what religion for what crime? And I'm sure in this judge's eyes, it's always going to be Christianity for any crime, And
well, see, and there becomes the rub, because a lot of these Christian folks, they think that Christianity is the one and only true religion on the planet, and I'm sorry to say that the Jews, the Hindus, the Muslims, the Catholics, and everybody else would probably have a problem with that.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, that's the whole problem with religion, is they all think that theirs is the only true religion, and that's, as an outsider looking at that, I just think they're all crazy.
Well, that's maybe for many reasons.
I mean, feel free to believe what you want, but when you start imposing it upon others, your beliefs, that's different. That's different. And you start telling me I got to go to church, or I got to be a Christian, then we have a problem. Yeah. Whole nother topic here. Walmart. We've heard a lot in the news about Walmart lately. And this particular piece I wrote up is about sweatshops and Walmart. Of course, it doesn't have to be just Walmart. It could be any corporate giant that outsources work overseas. And we all know the reason they do this is to increase their profit margin. And that's a nice way of saying they're taking advantage of disadvantaged countries. Of course, the corporate lawyers make sure that these corporate giants are protected. So the parent corporation never directly hires these workers or directly contracts with those companies who employ these sweatshop workers. The corporate giants hire subcontractors that take care of the dirty work, and this removes any liability from the corporate giants. So when a garment factory recently in Bangladesh caught fire and 112 workers were killed in that fire because there weren't enough emergency exits in the building, Walmart isn't liable. In fact, the Walmart was asked, if they employed that company, and they didn't respond. But then a day or two later, it was discovered that Walmart clothing was found in the remains of the fire. Indeed. Walmart, it didn't make any difference if they answered. The answer was already there. So initially, Walmart didn't confirm it or deny it. But once it was publicly announced that the factory did, in fact, create garments for Walmart, the company made an announcement. Yeah, see, speaking of fires, until you put them to the flame, you can't get an answer out of them. Anyway, Walmart stated that they had severed ties with that company due to safety concerns. And this very reason, safety concerns at the factory. But the subcontractor had violated Walmart policies and re-subcontracted with the company. And Walmart states the subcontractor has been fired. So there you have it. A fall guy has been sacrificed, and Walmart is in the clear.
Well, none of us should be surprised by this story in Walmart, because as we all know, Walmart hasn't had a real good human rights track record.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, 112 people died in their sweatshop, and they won't even own it, until they're forced to, And then they make some story to get out of it, because you got to wonder if any of that's true. Sure, they might have fired a guy. Sure, they made the guy the sacrificial lamb, quote unquote. But is that what really happened, or did this guy just he's just a. I'm sure a million people ready to step into that guy's place and take his job and start making his money. Yeah. Onward, here we go with the gay news. Yeah.
Yes, we are indeed going on with the gay news. And here is the first story in the gay news. Eureka Springs on Monday became the first city in Arkansas to endorse marriage equality, according to a report from retired journalist Michael Walsh, a resident who authored the city's domestic partner registry 5 years ago. In an email to the Dallas Voice, Walsh said he was one of two leaders of the low-profile campaign to persuade the city council to adopt the marriage equality resolution, who spoke in favor of it at Monday's meeting. Lamont Ritchie, a former city official and currently Carroll County court judge, was blunt about the resolution's intent. This will put you on record as supporting marriage equality, Ritchie told the council. I must say, I am sort of shocked but thrilled for the small town in Arkansas, not usually a hotbed of positive gay-related news. Arkansas and its neighbors have long been on the other side of many LGBTQIA issues, especially when it pertains to hate crimes. It is nice to be able to say once something happy and positive from the conservative Bible Belt.
Amen.
Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah.
Yeah. Let's slide all the way over to the other side of the world to India. The largest LGBT film festival in India occurred recently. An online friend who lives over there told me about it. He attended it for the first time in his life, ever. He attended an LGBT film festival. This one was located in Kolkata. I hope I'm saying that right. If not, I apologize. It's a city in India. He said the experience was thrilling. He also highly recommended two of the feature films that were displayed during that film festival. One called Saving Face, that was made in the USA in 2004. It was directed by Alice Wu. And another film called Eyes Wide Open, which was made in Israel in 2009 by Ham Tabakman. He stated that both were quite brilliant feature films. This is India's longest-running gay film festival. It's celebrating its 6th year this year. Over 40 films were showcased, which is almost double the number from last year. Yep, the film festival in Kolkata. Awesomeness. I got it. I'm definitely going to be seeing if I can find those films myself, because my friend in India tells me these things, and then it's not like he's messaging me every day and telling me, hey, check this out, hey, check that out. When he's, I don't hear from him that often. When I do, I take it to heart. Speaking of India, they had their 6th annual Gay Pride Parade in New Delhi last Sunday. Yep. It wasn't until 2009 that homosexual sexual acts were decriminalized in India. Prior to 2009, homosexual acts were punishable by up to 10 years in prison. So their Gay Pride Parade had many serious messages like, "We are demanding that all people be allowed to exercise their right to live their lives with dignity and freedom, regardless of their gender or sexual orientation." India is still very much evolving on acceptance and tolerance. This was evident in the fact that many marchers in Sunday's Pride Parade had their faces covered with scarves or wore masks. Back in 2009, the Delhi High Court removed Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, which criminalized homosexuality. The decision was appealed to their Supreme Court. The case was highly controversial. The court held hearings and people spoke about their concerns. A lawyer for the government during the hearings made the comment that gay sex is highly immoral and against societal order. But the government, in large, later retracted the statement. On March 28th of 2012, the Supreme Court of India stated it would reserve its verdict. In other words, they did nothing. Nothing has been heard about the case since. But thankfully, that also means that homosexuality is still decriminalized in India. In other words, the ruling from the lower court still stands. So it's a good thing. It's weird. It's weird to me that they did nothing. That they had hearings and they listened to people and then said they were going to reserve their verdict. They just decided to do nothing, which I think is weird. The way that things work in our country, if the Supreme Court agrees to hear something, then that usually means they're going to say something about it. They're going to have some kind of ruling or something, not just say, well, we decided we're not going to say nothing. Thanks for sharing all your time with us. That's just weird to me. But that's the way it stands over there, and that's where they're at. And thankfully, it's not against the law anymore.
Recently, California Governor Jerry Brown appointed the first openly gay appellate justice in the state's history. According to the Bay Area Reporter, Brown also appointed an out lesbian attorney, Paul S. Rosenstein, and I hope I got that right, to the San Diego Superior Court. Among several judicial appointments announced by the governor's office was that of Jim Humes, a 53-year-old gay man from San Francisco, to serve as Associate Justice in the First District Court of Appeals. Humes served as Brown's Executive Secretary for Legal Administration and Policy since 2011. The Area Reporter reports if confirmed by the Commission of Judicial Appointments, Humes will fill a vacancy left by retiring Justice Patricia Sepulveda. Rosenstein, 52, is a former co-president of the Tom Harmon LGBT Law Association in San Diego and specializes in domestic partnership and employment issues. Accordingly to the Bay Area Reporter, if confirmed, Rosenstein, a Democrat, will fill a vacancy caused by the retirement of Judge Linda B. Quinn. Wrapping out the historic appointments, Governor Brown also named Rosa Porfia. I hope I got that right.
It's Rosendo Pena.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What Tom said, as an Associate Justice on the state's 5th District Court of Appeals. If confirmed, Porfia would be the first Latino justice to serve on the Central Valley's District Court. This is another positive thing for the GLBTQI community, in addition to the appointments made by President Obama, makes for a very positive outlook for the GLBTQI community, especially in California.
Yeah. Don't forget, this coming Saturday, December 1st, is World AIDS Day. Around this time of the year, the United Nations AIDS program releases an annual report. A huge surprise came out this time around. The report shows a more than 50% reduction in the rate of new HIV infection has been achieved in 25 low to middle income countries, including more than half of those in Africa, which is the world's most affected region. I think that is just awesome news. That's a good
That
one.
is awesome news. And we are looking to put together something for next week's show in celebration of World AIDS Day.
Hopefully.
The Alliance, yes, hopefully. The Alliance Defending Freedom is not having one of their lawyers being arrested for child pornography stop them from pushing their anti-gay agenda on Maine, Maryland, and Washington by telling officials in each of those 3 states that they can refuse to issue marriage license to same-sex couples. Accordingly to the ADF, these officials do not have to violate their faith or conscience by issuing the said licenses, but can instead delegate that to someone else. The attempt to do this in New York resulted in several such officials losing their jobs. Accordingly to ADF Senior Counsel Austin Nimitz, no American should be forced to give up a constitutionally protected freedom, nor should any American be forced to give up his or her job in order to maintain that freedom. Religious freedom is paramount to every American, including those issuing marriage licenses. They can perform their job without violating their conscience. The memo sent out to these officials stated that given the quote-unquote recent redefinition of marriage to include same-sex couples, unquote, some officials may feel that they should either resign or violate their responsibilities, violate the religious based on bigotry. However, the memo insists that the officials can just appoint their responsibilities to their deputies or assistants. The memo does not appear to explain what happens if they cannot find anyone to give in the given office to carry out those duties, given that the official is then passing the buck and asking their deputies or assistants to potentially violate their own religious-based bigotry. Of course, the ADF's entire point with this is to try and drum up business, since they have told these officials that if they cannot get around the law by handing it off to someone else who might feel pressured into doing the job, despite objecting to same-sex unions themselves, they should contact the ADF. The memos also explain that if clerks and auditors encounter resistance in their efforts to resolve the religious conflict, they can also contact the Alliance Defending Freedom for assistance in light of the First Amendment protections for these 3 exercises. The Alliance Defending Freedom is not letting having one of their lawyers being arrested for child pornography stop them from pushing their anti-gay agenda. And with Bridget LaVictoria submitted this article. Why do these groups think they can go into these states and tell people how to run their laws and government, especially when they don't even live in that state? Groups like these are just wrong, and their activities should be highly scrutinized because I am sure they are illegal, not to mention hurtful. It's a shame that people waste so much energy and money trying to tell others how to live, but fail to live up to what they say. I guess it's a practice. I guess it's a practice as I say, not as I do type of thing going on here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens on all that because, a lot of people don't have that choice, I mean, if you're a clerk in a in an office in a city where the people go to get their marriage licenses, you can't just say, "Oh no, oh you're gay, you have to go over to that other clerk." You know, I mean, that could cost them their job, and it should, I think. Yeah. Never onward. Yes, never fear. The haters are still in full stride with all the accomplishments we made with the recent election and whatnot. You know, that's never fear. The haters are still in full stride. Another member of the hate brigade, besides the ADF, which Kali just mentioned, is the AFA, which stands for the American Family Association. They're actually a listed hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. And they have declared a war on Christmas hypocrites, quote unquote. Yes, the AFA is calling for a time-limited, it's only going to be supposed to be for 2 months, a time-limited boycott against the Gap, Old Navy, and Banana Republic. All three are owned by Gap Incorporated, which is based out of San Francisco. The reason for the boycott, according to the AFA, is that none of the company websites have the word Christmas in them. So let me get this right now. The Gap goes out of their way trying not to offend anyone, regardless of that person's religious affiliation. In other words, they're being politically correct, quote unquote. And the people that are raising hell are the extreme right Christians? Sometimes I think we could all just sit back and let the extremists eventually destroy themselves, which they are doing a good job of, but their actions are not victimless, and despite their claim, they are not the victims. Jeremy over at goodasyou.org took this issue a step further, and he went and visited the Chick-fil-A website and discovered that the Chick-fil-A website doesn't mention Christmas either. Apparently the AFA missed that one. You think we'll be hearing about the AFA adding Chick-fil-A to the boycott list? What do you think, Colin? You think we'll be hearing that?
Well, you know, they're already on my boycott list. So.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the AFA's boycott list. You know the story I'm talking about right now?
Yes, Tom, I know.
Anyway, yeah, I don't think they're going to be on that boycott list, even though that they, you know, it seems, I bet that you could find a lot of websites, corporate websites and whatnot that don't mention the word Christmas, because when you do, you alienate every other religion.
That's true.
So, you know, these people want to make as much money as they can. That's the corporate way. So, by being quote-unquote politically correct, they can sell Christmas gifts, Hanukkah gifts, you know, and Diwali gifts, and Ramadan gifts, and all kinds of gifts, you know, if they don't limit themselves. The true evil that we see coming from the haters almost always comes in a religious wrapper of some sort. Quite frankly, when the Bible and or religion is used as a weapon, it is not serving its purpose. As you've probably heard, the Ugandan parliament is voting on the Kill the Gays bill. In fact, one of the lawmakers has stated the bill will be a Christmas present for the Ugandan people. Of course, the AFA couldn't miss out on an opportunity like this, so Brian Fisher of the AFA had to make a few public announcements to make sure that people were aware that the AFA supports the Kill the Gays bill in Uganda. Yep. Here's, like I said, these people, they were desperate before, they're beyond desperation now. So now all the really nutcase stuff is going to start coming out. Here's a perfect example. After this whole thing with Uganda and the AFA and Brian Fisher being their talking mouthpiece, he tweeted, "Homosexuality now against the law in Uganda, just as it was for 200 years in the U.S. It can be done." I find this very interesting because homosexuality has always been against the law in Uganda. This has not changed. It's always I spoke with a guy from Uganda here a few years ago, and he was I believe he was a college student. We didn't get too much into his personal life and who he was or anything, because obviously he didn't want people to know who he was. He was anonymously speaking to me, and he said, and I quote, "Homosexuality has been illegal for my entire life." And this was a guy that was in his 20s or maybe early 30s. I believe he was a college student. But so it's always been illegal. Homosexuality has always been illegal in Uganda. The Kill the Gays bill simply enhances the illegality of homosexuality in Uganda. It does not create it. Mr. Brian Fisher is simply showing his ignorance. But Mr. Brian Fisher wasn't done. In another tweet, he said, "Christianity, life, and marriage are good, to be defended. Islam, abortion, and homosexuality are evil, to be defeated." And now, in case we didn't know before, we know why the American Family Association has been listed as a hate organization by the Southern Poverty Law Center. These self-appointed, self-righteous Christian extremists have hijacked Christianity. Perhaps one day, more of the real Christians in our world will stand up and speak out. Of course, the haters are in overdrive right now, since they are in shock over the recent election results. They don't see the turning tide. They don't see it as defeat. They see it as a need for them to do more. So this Uganda issue is bringing the haters out of the dark shadows and into the light of day. Here's another one. Tony Perkins with the FRC, the Family Research Council, which is located in Washington, D.C. He had to put in his 2 cents recently. And in a recent tweet, he said, "American liberals are upset that Ugandan president is leading his nation in repentance, afraid of a modern example of a nation prospered by God?" Question mark. So the first thing I did, I went to Merriam-Webster dictionary to look up the word prospered. And it had 2 different listings in there. The first one said, succeed in material terms. Be financially successful. The second one said, flourish physically. Grow strong and healthy. So I was kind of scratching my head, and I got to ask, since Uganda is not a leading nation of the world, and they have serious health problems with HIV and AIDS, which requires that more prosperous nations of the world help them, it's obvious to me that Mr. Perkins has a different definition of the word prospered, because I don't see much prospering going on in Uganda. A bit of icing on this reminder that hate is well and strong. I thought it would be interesting to give you a little bit of a clip, an audio clip from the Reverend John Hagee in San Antonio, Texas. He's a mega church preacher, a.k.a. a millionaire by God, which I have a problem with, quite frankly. John Hagee, this millionaire by God, in case you don't remember, he's the one that's famous for saying that Katrina was sent to New Orleans. Well, let me let the sound clip speak for itself, because I went out and I got quite a few sound bites from this Reverend John Hagee, this millionaire by God megachurch preacher, and so I hope you enjoy it here, listening to this little tidbit here, because it's enlightening.
Think about the condition of America today. Freedom is when the government fears the people. Tyranny is when people fear the government. What do we have? Think about it. The next plank in my candidate's platform is purity. Not perversion, purity. Jesus said, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Say that with me. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. America does not have purity when men marry men and women marry women. It does not have purity. We've rewarded laziness and called it welfare. You no longer look to God, you look for a check in the mail. In the Bible says the man that does not work should not eat. I still think that ought to be the law in the United States of America. If you don't want to get up off your blessed assurance and go to work, starve. I don't care. Starve. I don't feel sorry for you. Go to work. Death is better than compromise. Death is better than compromise. What are you willing to put your life on the line for? The Bible says in the book of Revelation about the New Testament saints, they love not their lives unto the death. Does that describe the 21st century church in America? I think not. Think about that.
And this last little sound clip on John Hagee comes to us from National Public Radio, the program called Fresh Air. And this particular episode aired September 18th of 2006. Here we go.
Do you still think that Katrina is punishment from God for a society that's becoming like Sodom and Gomorrah?
All hurricanes are acts of God because God controls the heavens. I believe that New Orleans had a level of sin that was offensive to God, and they were recipients of the judgment of God for that. The newspaper carried the story in our local area that was not carried nationally, that there was to be a homosexual parade there on the Monday that the Katrina came. And the promise of that parade was that it was going to reach a level of sexuality never demonstrated before in any of the other gay pride parades. So I believe that the judgment of God is a very real thing. And I believe that the Hurricane Katrina was in fact the judgment of God against the city of New Orleans.
You think that the whole city was punished because of things like the forthcoming Gay Pride Parade?
This is true. All of the city was punished because of the sin that happened there in that city.
Goodness gracious. Oh, we lost Collie. You back, Collie?
Yes, I'm here.
Goodness gracious. Well, you missed
They
that.
talk about those haters, you know, they just...
Well, I think John Hagee sent God down to disconnect you from this show because it's a queer show.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's what it is. So anyway, yeah, that kind of says it all there with where John Hagee's coming from. And, you know, quite frankly, I had a friend ask me about a preacher, and I'm not going to mention his name, another preacher, not John Hagee, asked me about another preacher. He says, I've been watching so-and-so on TV, another mega church preacher. And he says, what do you think of him? I said, well, I only need to think one thing about him, and that kind of dismisses him in my mind. He says, what's that? I says, he's a millionaire by God. He says, what do you mean? I said, I don't think anyone should become a millionaire through religion. I think that's wrong. I think if the churches make it that much money, then they should be helping out a hell of a lot more poor people rather than building these huge, humongous auditoriums they call churches. I see a lot of things wrong with that. People getting rich in the name of religion. I totally disagree with that. So that's all I have to say. When anyone asks me anything about if they're a mega preacher and they've become a millionaire through religion, they shouldn't count. Period. End of story. Onward. And Cully's got a little story to share with us.
Yes, I do. In August, the Lifetime show Drop Dead Diva devoted an episode to the sole nickname sperm ban, a Food and Drug Administration policy meant to keep men who had sex with other men from donating to sperm banks. The episode prompted an inevitable comparison of the sperm ban to another FDA policy targeting gay men, the ban of blood donation, and gave the issue a pushback into the public debate. The FDA policy barring men who have sex with men from donating blood is infamous, sparking protests nationwide and even inspiring a movement for repeal led by members of Congress such as Senator John Kerry and Representative Mike Quigley. In comparison, the ban on gay sperm donors is relatively unknown. That's because the FDA's sperm donation policy isn't really a ban, per se. Since 2005, the FDA has offered guidelines, and I use that in quotes, for sperm banks, suggesting that men who have had sex with men in the previous 5 years be barred from donating sperm. While some, if not most, sperm banks certainly abide by the guidelines, the policy is neither mandatory nor enforced, meaning some sperm banks do collect donations from gay and bisexual men. The FDA policy on blood donation, on the other hand, affirms that any man who has had sex with another man since 1977 is barred from donating blood for life, a decision that was upheld by a panel in 2010. Nonetheless, it's still possible to donate sperm as a gay man, and accordingly to Nathan Schaefer, Director of Public Policy for the Gay Men's Health Crisis, that's why the policy isn't widely condemned, or as thoroughly covered in the media as the blood ban. It's on the books, but is not enforced in the same way, Schaefer says. I think there's not as much attention to it because it's not like people are being denied all the time. That's not to say we don't think it shouldn't be removed, but that's why people know less about it. The guideline in question is written into the donor screening section of the FDA's Guidance for Industry, eligibility determination for donors of human cells, tissue and cellular and tissue-based products. The document that outlines the basics of tissue donor eligibility screening and testing. The document includes the question, what risk factors or conditions do I look for when screening a donor? The answer is a list of conditions and behaviors that increase the donor's relevant communicable disease risk, advising healthcare officials to determine a donor is ineligible if they meet any of the listed criteria. First on the list of risky donors, men who've had sex with another men in the preceding 5 years, risk factor for HIV and hepatitis B. That same document also contains non-binding recommendations, and I put that in quotes. Thanks to Camille Brerejic of Advocate magazine for this story. I must say this truly hurts gay families. Most GLBTQI families seek donors from the communities which they are most comfortable with. This is a major problem for those families, not to mention blatant discrimination on its face, and the FDA knows it.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I've heard about that, and like I said in the articles, it's one of those things you hear about every once in a while because it only seems to be enforced at every blue moon or whatever. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like years ago I was in a classroom situation, and the school had a blood bank bus come by to draw blood from everybody. They were having a blood drive, and everyone in my class was going to give blood. And they asked me, why aren't you coming? And they all knew I was gay, and I told them, I said, well, I'm gay. Gays aren't allowed to give blood. And they were all in shock, When I said, you'll see, when you go down there, they're going to ask you to fill out a piece of paper. One of the questions it's going to ask you is if you're gay and or if you've had sex with a man in the last, X number of years or whatever. And, yeah, you'll see. And they all came back, you were right. I didn't know that. So, yeah, they were all feeling kind of weird that I couldn't give blood, I was willing, but I didn't want mine because I was a gay man. Oh, well. Onward here. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Even if it wasn't the best, I bet it was better than the one had by Mallory Owens, because Mallory was so excited before Thanksgiving that she was going to spend Thanksgiving Day with her girlfriend's family. Her and her girlfriend are in their early 20s. She was very excited to be welcomed by her girlfriend's family. Unfortunately, the younger brother evidently wasn't so welcoming of Mallory's girlfriend, and he wasn't pleased at all. In fact, he ended up assaulting Mallory, causing multiple skull fractures and crushed bones, and she's currently in the hospital. The 18-year-old brother fled, but eventually turned himself into police a few days later. He was bonded out of jail the same day. He was only charged with assault charges. The victim's family members are highly upset and have called the crime an attempted murder and a hate crime. Meanwhile, Mallory is still in the hospital, recovering from her broken nose and the reconstructive facial surgery she required. The picture that they had of her was just terrible. Did you see the article, Colleen?
Yes, I did see the article, and it was really depressing.
And I'm thinking, it was supposed to be such a beautiful thing, and she was so excited and happy, and she ended up getting beat by the 18-year-old brother. I was really in shock. I just think it's kind of odd that no one knew that the possibility of this happening was there. You would have thought that if the family was going to invite, the daughter's girlfriend over for Thanksgiving dinner, that they would have discussed that with the entire family first, and if the son was having misgivings about it or showed signs of being angered by it, I would have thought the family, I guess they just told the son, well, too bad, suck it up, Well, that turned out tragic, very, very tragic indeed.
And another tragic story coming to us from Instinct Magazine, with our thanks, is an American anti-gay group linked to the Uganda's Kill the Gays bill, also knee-deep in the cover-up of a murder. The Missouri-based International House of Prayer, yes, that acronym, their acronym, IHOP, let's just get that out of the way, is attempting to mask their ties with cult leader Tyler Deaton. Deaton is under suspicion of ordering his wife Bethany's murder after it appeared that she may reveal the cult's religious rituals, some of which are homosexual in nature, to her therapist. Beyond the revelations of homosexual rituals, Bethany was also drugged and sexually abused. Now, IHOP wants to distance themselves from Deaton. The group claims that Deaton's sect was completely separate from IHOP, that his sect operated under a veil of secrecy, and I use that in quotes. However, a website posting listed Deaton as one of IHOP's 6 division coordinators. IHOP is claiming that Deaton's listing is an error and that the higher-ups within the group have never even met him. However, Another listed division coordinator says she attended at least 3 meetings where Deaton was present and participated. It sounds like IHOP leadership wants to erase their obvious connections with Deaton, but we're thinking they won't be able to. What else could the mysterious anti-gay group be attempting to keep hidden from public view?
Yeah, I saw an article. I don't know if it was the same one, but I did see an article about this. And when I saw the picture of the guy, Mr. Deaton, I mean, you know, I know you can't tell a lot from one picture, but I'm sorry, that guy looked very gay to me.
Yeah, my gaydar was kind of going off on that too.
I mean, the pretty boy look, you know, I mean, the gay pretty boy look, he had it down. Anyway, whatever. That you know, we see that kind of stuff within the groups of the haters, you know, I mean, because there's a certain percent of these haters. You know, I think some of them, and probably the majority of them, are sincere and they're just ignorant. You know, like from that preacher said on that movie For the Bible Tells Me So. He says, "There's nothing wrong with the 5th grade understanding of the Bible if you're in the 5th grade." So, you know, I mean, that kind of said it all. You know, but I think a lot of people that are haters fall into that category. You know, they've been told whatever they've been told throughout the years from their preachers from the pulpits, and they're all biblical literalists, and you know, the Bible isn't supposed to be taken literally. It's parables. It's not a literal sense kind of thing. But anyway, you know, there is a lot of hate in the hate groups. There is, I think, a certain percentage of people that are basically closet cases, and they're self-haters, you know, those kind of closet cases that are still fighting it. And they're fighting it internally, and they're just externalizing that fight, you know, because they feel like, you know, that justifies their hate and their inner battle is when someone else can fight the battle with them. You know, when they're doing it alone, it makes them question themselves. So, you know, it empowers them, I think, and that's what they go off the deep end. And then when they get caught, you know, it's just these atrocious stories. And this guy killed his wife, you know, to try to hide it. Because this group has empowered him. This IHOP group that hates, you know, the guy that runs that whole thing, you know, he went to Uganda and he had the prayer vigil thing in a stadium there. He did that during Proposition 8 too in California. He went to California in a stadium there and rented it and had a prayer day, you know, for people to pass the Proposition 8. And you know, it comes as no surprise when these, you know, weirdos come out of the woodwork, because that's, you know, a certain percentage of those people that are involved in that kind of hate spewing are exactly they're self-haters, they're closet cases, and you know, these groups are feeding them, and making they're enablers. They're making their illness, quote unquote, worse, because the illness is the fact that they're not accepting themselves, that they have this inner battle going on, and they think everyone in the world should have this inner battle going on if they're homosexual, that they shouldn't accept that. And when they get empowered by groups that seem to agree with their mindset on it all, then that makes the whole thing worse in people like that. And obviously that's what's going on in this story, you know. And these groups, when it does happen, they just don't walk for the nearest exit. They run and leave the person in the room by themselves. We don't know them. We never do them. We had nothing to do with them. They weren't really our friend. Pay no attention to the writing on the wall. Public displays of affections are in the news again, and will be again and again and again, I'm sure. This time, though, it's in Philadelphia at the Thomas Jefferson University Hospital campus. There happens to be a public park on the property. Evidently, the security forces there observed two men kissing and told them they had to leave. One of the men stated it was a short kiss, maybe 20 seconds. He was very surprised. And even more surprised because that end of the park is like right next door to the neighborhood. During the time, the security officers were escorting the gentleman off because two more showed up. It was one initially that approached them, and then suddenly, next thing you know, there was three of them. And they were escorting these two gentlemen off the property. And one of the gentlemen asked the security officers if they'd take the same action against a heterosexual couple. The officer said, "That's out of the question." That was the response they got. But once authorities were contacted, because this has turned into now, some legal representatives have gotten involved, and once the authorities at the school were contacted, now that's response that the security gave, seems to have changed now. The school officially has stated that the officer would have taken the same action if it was a heterosexual couple. I've reported on this same scenario a couple times. It's replayed itself many times in the past. I remember a couple Christmases ago, I think it was 2 or 3 Christmases ago, when a lesbian couple were in a shopping mall. And they stopped during their shopping in the food court to have something to eat, and they ate, and they gave each other a quick peck, a kiss on the cheek in the food court, and we're going to continue their shopping. But evidently a mall security officer saw the kiss and escorted the women off the property. And when the officials at the mall were contacted, we got the same response, saying that the mall security would have taken the same action if it was a heterosexual couple. I have a hard time with this because we all know heterosexual couples have kissed in public everywhere, all the time. We've all seen it. And what we don't see is heterosexual couples being escorted off the property for doing it. That's what we don't see. So it's no surprise that none of the security firms can produce any evidence that they have, in fact, escorted heterosexuals off the property for kissing in public. None of them. They all say they would do the same thing if it was a heterosexual couple. Well, we're supposed to take their word that they would do the same thing if it was a heterosexual couple, but they've never done it. In the years they've been there, in the years that the mall's been in business, in the years that park's been there on that campus, that no heterosexual couple has ever been viewed by any security personnel kissing. Quite frankly, that's bullshit.
And what the hell, people? It's only a kiss. Really? It's not like they're having, oral sex or anal sex on the property.
Really?
Just had to throw that in, sorry. We have an update. Yes, we do.
All right.
Check off the win for Madonna, and in Russia, no less.
Shock.
Remember that multi-million-dollar lawsuit filed against her back in August by a group of anti-gay activists in Russia?
I do remember that.
They accuse her of traumatizing minors by standing up for gay rights during a concert in St. Petersburg, where it is illegal to promote homosexuality to young people. But a Russian court has thrown the lawsuit out, and the AP and the Reuters are reporting the decision. Thursday went against 9 members of a group calling themselves the Trade Union of Russian Citizens, who were seeking nearly $11 million in damages from Madonna for allegedly exposing minors to the homosexual propaganda, and I put that in quotes. The AP said the ruling came after a one-day hearing that bordered on the I can't pronounce that.
Farcical.
Bordered on farcical. Farcical. The plaintiffs claimed that Madonna's so-called propaganda of perversion would negatively affect Russia's birth rate and erode the nation's defense capability by depriving the country of future soldiers. AP reported at one point the judge threatened to expel the journalists from the courtroom if they laughed too much. While in Russia, Madonna had attacked as a ridiculous atrocity a St. Petersburg law adopted in March that imposes fines for speaking out for gay rights. During her concert, the activist claimed, based on a video, she allegedly trampled on an Orthodox cross and urged the audience to wear pink bracelets in support of gays. She also supported the jailed members of the Russian punk band Pussy Riot. In dismissing the case, the judge did not explain his decision, but also ruled that the activists must pay the legal expenses of the companies that organized Madonna's concert. The activists promised to appeal. We aren't against homosexual people, but we are against the propaganda of perversion among minors. Plaintiff Daria Dendova testified, "We want to defend the values of a traditional family which are currently in crisis in this country. Madonna violated our laws, and she should be punished." Anti-gay sentiment is strong in Russia. Despite the criminalization of homosexuality in 1993, most gays are not out. But the Madonna case might suggest another incremental shift in attitudes there, just as the recent election in the United States, with multiple wins for pro-gay causes and candidates across our nation, reflects the changes in American attitudes. Madonna, who was on a world tour, did not attend the trial, and her publicist indicated she would have no comment. I, for one, say bravo for Madonna. Most are well aware Madonna has always been very outspoken and especially giving to her LGBTQIA fans, in which she can claim many. Thanks to Maria Parente of USA Today.
Yeah, Madonna. I also read about the Madonna victory in Russia, but what jumped out at me in the story was this misguided reasoning behind the case in the first place. The claimants argued that Madonna's performance would adversely affect Russia's birth rate and therefore its ability to maintain a proper army. Now, doesn't that make it all so much more clear? That's like, hello? How many years back in history are you living? An awesome first-time event is taking place. A few years ago, a 17-year-old Jewish man wanted to be rid of his homosexual tendencies, so he started searching for a solution. He found a group named Jonah, Jonah, stands for Jews Offering New Alternatives for Healing. On their website, the Jonah group offered to help people, quote unquote, struggling with unwanted same-sex sexual attractions. The co-director of Jonah told the young man that Jonah could help him change his orientation from gay to straight. After years of therapy and money spent for that therapy, the 17-year-old and 3 other men have filed a consumer fraud lawsuit against Jonah. According to the lawsuit, the 4 men state that they were defrauded by Jonah's claim that being gay is a mental disorder and could be reversed by conversion therapy. It should be interesting to see the outcome of this, because at the very least, the existence of this case should put all ex-gay therapists on notice that they can be held accountable. awesome. I think this is an awesome case. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it.
Me too. Boeing company the Boeing company told union negotiators that it plans to deny pension survivor benefits to married same-sex couples in Washington state because federal law does not require that it provide the benefit. The multinational Aerospace and Defense Corporation indicated that its position in talks about retirement benefits on Wednesday, accordingly to a union source who spoke with the stranger. The source said the company planned to use a loophole, and I put that in quotes, to avoid providing equal pension benefits, which are governed by the federal government, not state law. I think this would be a mistake for any company. It is sad that we as a community still have to piecemeal our rights. That should be ours by birth. Yes, gay people are part of the human family, and yes, we do occasionally die, and to tell us our families cannot claim survivor benefits is horrible. It's another sign that we still have a long way to go in our struggle for equal rights.
Yeah, I'm in shock to hear that about Boeing, because I thought they were a little bit more diverse than that.
Yeah, I did too.
This last weekend in Australia, thousands went to the streets in support of marriage equality. In Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, Melbourne, and other cities across Australia, thousands of people gathered in support of marriage equality. Tasmania has already made headway. Back in 2003, they passed the Domestic Partnership Registry. Some speakers at the events suggested that Tasmania will have true marriage equality in 2013 when a bill currently in Parliament is passed.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Gotta love that.
I love that. Although every time I see the word Tasmania, I think about the Tasmanian Daredevil, the cartoon character.
Those poor people must get that a lot.
I bet they do, too. Hey, if you're going to be in Nashville this coming Sunday, December 2nd, you might want to head over to the Renaissance Center in Dixon, Tennessee. It's about 30 minutes from Nashville. Because sections of the AIDS Memorial Quilt will be on display in the Renaissance Center's Rotunda from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. I tell you, folks, there's certain events in life, if you've never done it, you should jump at it the first chance you get. And viewing any part of the AIDS Memorial Quilt is one of those. Taking part in a protest march with the LGBT group is another one of those. I'm telling you that they are indescribable experiences that you will never forget as long as you live. This event, which is coming up in near Nashville, is in recognition, of course, of World AIDS Day, which is this Saturday, December 1st. The Renaissance Center will also host a free reception and performance by Nashville in Harmony, which is a 102-member chorus. Of course, AIDS and HIV literature will also be provided at the event. This year, the quilts displayed will include several Nashville residents who died of HIV and AIDS complications.
Ever thought about getting a college degree in queer studies? The University of California at Long Beach has approved an 18-unit study program which will allow you to obtain a minor in queer studies. The program was developed by Jennifer Reed, an associate professor in the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies Department. She recently spoke about the program and stated queer is an accepted word in academia to talk about the range of sexuality and anything that challenges the norms of heterosexuality. It's bigger than just gay and lesbian. Cal State Long Beach joins a growing list of universities offering minors in queer or LGBT-related studies, including Cal State Northridge, University of California at Los Angeles, UC Berkeley, Cal State Fullerton, San Francisco State, San Diego State offers a major and a minor in LGBT studies.
Whoa, that's totally awesome.
Just sounded like one of those California surfer boys there.
Like totally, man. Today, the 27th of November 2012, is the 34th anniversary of Harvey Milk's death. Events will be taking place across the country as organizations such as Stand Up Florida, Equality Across America, and others hold events and vigils in remembrance of Harvey Milk and George Moscone. In San Francisco, there will be a candlelight vigil and remembrance service dedicated to both Harvey Milk and Mayor George Moscone. Of course, as we already heard and Collie told us earlier, in case we didn't know, they were both murdered on the same day. If you're in San Francisco, head down to City Hall because at 4:30 p.m. the event started. And afterwards they're going to march from San Francisco City Hall to Harvey Milk's old camera shop in the Castro. So join the Moscone and the Milk family, the mayor, Mayor Lee, Mayor Brown, current and past supervisors of San Francisco, the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, and friends of Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Milk. If, like me, you can't attend the event, you might want to visit Uncle Donald's Castro Street website. I've talked about this before. It's just an awesome website. Uncle Donald's Castro Street website, where you can virtually relive the mid-1970s on Castro Street in San Francisco. Uncle Don was a friend of Harvey Milk's, and he was a photographer. And he left New York and came to San Francisco just like Harvey did, but he did it a couple years after Harvey. So check out the website, thecastro.net. Yeah, T-H-E, thecastro.net. Awesome website. Awesome pictures, everything on there. You know, as we said in the beginning of the show, Harvey Milk was always about our community, not about himself. I have a short clip of him doing just that, and here it is.
We must destroy the myths once and for all, shatter them. We must continue to speak out. And most importantly, every gay person must come out. As difficult as it is, you must tell your immediate family, you must tell your relatives, you must tell your friends if indeed they are your friends, you must tell your neighbors, you must tell the people you work with, you must tell the people in the stores you shop in, once they realize that we are indeed their children and we are indeed everywhere, every myth, every lie, every innuendo will be destroyed once and for all. And once you do, you will feel so much better.
Oh my God, such an awesome sound clip. That's my favorite sound clip of Harvey Milk that I have, and you can hear it often on the air on queerpublicradio.com because it plays quite often. Those words were spoken, 35, 36 years ago, folks, and they're still valid today, and they shouldn't be, because we should all be out of the closet. Thank you for spending time with us on queerpublicradio.com and on Two Gay Tuesdays. I know, we appreciate you, and we thank you for spending a little time with us.
And please remember, we are all part of one human family. Of course, this means that we are all brothers and sisters. Much love and aloha.
See y'all next week. Don't forget it, every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, and what is it, 3?
3? Free Hawaii time.
Yeah, see you in Hawaii. Hawaii.
Yep.
Mahalo and much love. Remember, like he said, we're all one human family. That means we're all brothers and sisters. See you next time, brother and sister. Bye for now.
I love you, and you, and you. Oh, and you too. And don't forget him. I love her, and him, and her, and him, and him, and her. I love you all.
Adios. Have a nice trip. Bon voyage. Farewell to thee.
That's all, folks.
We'll leave the light on for you.